I'm really excited to talk to everyone today about our journey this summer in terms of reorganization. And I'm very excited for the DLT to have an opportunity to meet our new District 25 team members and for our team members to meet our district leadership. So I'm going to start by asking Janet, did you send Lewis the minutes?
I sent you the minutes.
Okay. Let me send them. Lewis, I'm going to send them to you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Okay. So we'll start by having Lewis put up the minutes and the agenda. First, the minutes.
I have.
Yeah.
The agenda.
Yep, you can pop up the agenda today. One of the things that after I do introductions of the team, Bill, I'm just gonna mute you because
and then just where to locate it.
Actually, it's not you. Somebody else is. Oh, that's Tracy. Right? Okay.
It's okay. I can manage it. It's good.
Okay, so you'll manage. So so you can unmute yourself, Bill. It's not your fault. I don't mean to silence you. I thought there was somebody speaking behind you. Okay, so after we go through the minutes and the introduction of the team, I know that our high schools are preparing for opening day as well. So if no one on the team minds, I would like to allow Bill to go first. So, and Bill, you know, you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but just this way, you know, you'll have time because I know you guys are really busy. So, if you're okay and ready to go first.
That's fine. I to be absolutely honest, I don't have a whole lot prepared. What I would like to do is just give you kind of a briefing on, you know, the superintendent 2 is new to Queens North. We're really excited to have her with us as a superintendent. As you know, our smaller team is now much larger, but you know, we are really, for the most part, working with many of the same folk that we have in the past as the BCO. So we're all kind of finding our positions and working collaboratively together. As you know, many of our team members are being dispatched to do the walkthroughs of the buildings to make sure that the high schools are ready for our first day. So that's what many of the people on the team are doing currently. We do have many new principals. This is not really impacting D25, but it will impact some of the other districts. So this year we do have 6 new principals joining Queens North, and those schools, Bard has a new principal, Dr. Himson. Applied Communications has a new principal.
Wait, Bill, before you do that, I wanted to I was going to call you first on the agenda, but we didn't go through that yet.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Because I know that there's a couple of people that we're still waiting for. We're waiting for, so what I wanted to do is go through the agenda really quick and move you up on the agenda. and then, you know, to just give you that opportunity to go first, because I know normally you wait patiently. So so we're going to bump up the high school superintendent's report, but following that, because I know that on my listening and learning tours, which I'm going to talk about today, thank you, Joe, for allowing me to be a stop on that. That was a good, exciting time for me to get my feet wet in the process, and I thought it went really well, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But during my listening and learning tours, well, there were a couple of things that came up around high schools that I just wanted to sort of highlight, and then you know, kind of set some or open up opportunities for conversation about some of the things that our families are asking of us that we're already as a DLT sort of doing well. So we'll put that up there. And then Gus is on vacation, as he's been saying to us for a while, and we're happy for him to have the opportunity to spend some time Not in the DOE since he lives here. I see him here all the time. So Matt Zwillick, and we know Matt, he has been a supporter of our DLT and many of our schools in terms of iPlan. And Matt will be here today with us to go over some of the important information that is usually communicated through Gus, and that will be our meeting today. So, Louis, if you can put up the minutes. And we can go through them. Let's make sure Shirley said that. You can skip through that. That's what's on every, yep. Oh, does she? Okay. Louis, you have.
We're good.
To get to attendance.
I'm going to keep muting you because you're ruining our meeting.
I'm at the end of the minutes.
Okay, so we're good. Any corrections, additions? Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
I second Francis.
Thank you, Francis. Okay, so now we can move on to Bill, before you finish, one of the things that I did want the entire DLT to have an opportunity to do is to meet the District 25 team and everyone who is on here. And I know that Dr. D'Antona is going to go over specifically what each person does. So do you want to wait to do that? You want to have them show their face when they do that? But I know that some people are on vacation today. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce the people who are on our team, those who are still here, and those who are now going to be working alongside us. And we're really excited about that because we are now able to provide our schools with direct supports to only District 25 schools with instructional specialists, other support staff, and you will hear how we are working to ensure that there are strategic supports for each of our schools aligned to our school goals. So just to start, I know Anna Arrigo is here. So I'll make sure I could get her up very quickly. Anna is in Florida right now. So Anna, thank you for being on today. Anna is an instructional lead in our district. She is going to be supporting early childhood and all of elementary in general with literacy. I know many of you have seen Anna before. She's presented at our CEC meetings. She knows our District 25 schools well, and we want to welcome you, Anna, and we're happy that you're still here to support District 25.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning and welcome. I'm excited
so now,
to be part of the team again.
And so now you could go back into the sun or you could stay. You're welcome to do that, but I want to thank you for being here. Also, I believe on vacation is Melinda Willens. Melinda, thank you for being here today. I know that you guys have worked all summer. Are you in or are you on vacation?
I'm still in my pajamas, so I don't know if you want to see. I'm not going to.
No,
I'll show my face for 2 seconds. Here's my face.
All right, there you go, Melinda. Good. So Melinda is also an instructional lead in our district. She is responsible for the work. She's supported District 25 for many, many years in many different capacities in the network and in the borough. But last year, she supported all of our schools in the implementation of Civics for All, which was amazing and helped guide our students to do the soapbox work where they were celebrated at the citywide level. So we are really proud of the work that Melinda has done for our schools and our students. This summer, she worked with our 8th graders who were in summer school for English and social studies, and once again did a civics project with them that helped support their ability to be able to graduate and move on to high school. So Melinda will be continuing that work. She'll be doing it for all schools across the district, but specifically you'll hear that we are focusing strategically on reading, reading in the content areas, reading to learn in our middle schools. And Melinda's going to be supporting our ELA and social studies teachers in that work. And we're really excited to have her be part of that and have her be committed to solely District 25. So Melinda, welcome. And I know that she will be presenting. She also presented at the CEC for Civics for All. Joe, I'm sure you remembered her. And Francis, one of the things that I want to put out there to you is we now have support staff that if President's Council wants any of our staff members to present on any of our initiatives, please feel free to ask us, and we're happy to do that for our parent leaders of PTAs. Okay, so next we have Richard Braun, or Rick, as he likes to be called. Richard is also an instructional lead. Right now he's wearing 2 hats in supporting us with our opening of the school year L compliance and making sure that our principals and our students are supported in that work. But he is also going to continue the amazing instructional work that we've been doing in terms of supporting our English language learners. So Richard, welcome. I don't know if you.
Thank you. Good morning. Sorry, my camera's not functioning. I'm waiting for DIIT to come down and take a look.
Yeah, Richard's here.
Sorry, everybody. I look like my profile icon, though. So.
Yeah, he does. He actually looks exactly like his profile, even that little flip in his hair. Okay, let's see. Yep. What did he say?
He wanted to know if I had it closed, like a little dot over my camera.
And then we have Marissa Martin. Marissa, I know I saw, there you are, Marissa. So Marissa is coming to us as a family leadership, right? A family lead, what's your community coordinator? Yes, I'm sorry. I'm still learning all of our titles. Community coordinator, but Marissa has been doing some fabulous work in supporting me in organizing my listening and learning tour. She has also been connecting and making relationships for the district and setting up engagements with myself and our local community-based organizations, our elected officials, our many of our local religious organizations. So she is going to be the support person in the district to connect our district office and our schools with the communities. So welcome, Marissa, and you're doing a great job. She's also helped me decorate, create my new business cards, which I love. So thank
Hi,
you,
everyone.
Marissa.
Happy to be here.
Okay, and we have Diana Stein. Welcome, Diana. So Diana is not new to our district once again, and we're really excited to have her here. Diana is one of the instructional leads that helped District 25 get in compliance with physical education, right? So Diana, I don't know if you, she's also a support for all of our phys ed teachers. They love her. And she is going to additionally be supporting us with health and wellness. So we're excited to have Diana to be part of our district. Welcome, Diana. I don't know if you want to just say hello so they can hear your voice.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be still working with the best district 25. Thank you so much.
Yes, Diana, thank you. And we have Beverly Mitchell. Beverly, I see that you're on. So Beverly Mitchell is a long-term friend to District 25 and to myself. We've been colleagues for many, many years, and I'm happy to have her as a thought partner. She will be supporting our schools with facilities. So I know, Joe, you'll be talking to Beverly a lot. And she will also be working with we have not hired this person yet, but our student services, which is our safety, our guidance teams, our SEL work. So Beverly will be managing all of that for the district. So welcome, Beverly. I see you're at a school.
Yes, I'm at Tiffany Neely, Principal Neely.
Oh, I'm sure she's treating you beautifully, right? I'm sure you have snacks and drinks, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and yep. Okay, and I believe that is everyone that is here from the team. Did I miss anyone? No, right? And as you know, Lewis is still here. Dr. Mike is still here. Debbie is still here. Say hi, Debbie. Debbie Winkler. She'll still be doing our TDEC work. Janet is still here supporting us as a DLT. Who else did I miss? Oh, Esther. Esther, you know Esther, everybody. Smile, Esther. I see you on. Here she is, Esther. Yes. Francis, when you come, you'll see Esther has her own little section. So you'll be happy to see that you guys can sit and work together. She has like this bigger space than me and Dr. Mike.
I heard you have the penthouse now.
Yes, I don't know for the penthouse, but you know what? I did this to myself and Dr. Mike. We could both have our own offices, but I said he's got to be next to me because our creativity has to continue and I can't do it alone. So there are also other members that Mike will present because he's going to go through a list of other team members, but they are on vacation this week. They were only assigned to our office as of August 1st. So they spent the first couple of weeks really meeting with all of us as a team, talking to us about their skills and talents, formulating what the year will look like. And then they weren't allowed to take vacation at all in the month of July because they had to support with Summer Rising. So this week they are on vacation, well-deserved vacation. And I do thank those of you who continue to be here like Richard. Richard's like, I'm just gonna be here every day until I know what District 25 is all about. So I want to thank everyone is on vacation for being here today. All right. So now, Bill, now you're up. Talk to us about the new high school principals.
So as I was saying earlier, this doesn't impact the D25, but we do have 6 new high school principals for Queens North High Schools, and I'm just going to give you a rundown of those schools. Bard, the new principal is Dr. Himson. Just so that you know, she was a former AP at the building. For Applied Communication, the new principal is Mr. Shin. For Queens Tech, the new principal is Mr. Luis Garcia. For Baccalaureate, the new principal is Dr. Page. And for William Cullen Bryant, one of our TSI schools, the new principal will be Miss St. Aubin, and she was prior AP in that building. And as I said earlier, normally I would be presenting a slide deck with some of the highlights of the schools. I can tell you that many of the schools had really powerful summarizing programs, and the students did take the Regents exams. We're in the process of looking at that data and tiering our schools as far as support, and that's really what we're engaged in now. And also through a collaborative process with superintendent and the superintendent's team, as well as the principals, we're making steps to revise and modify our goals for this year. So once I have something more solid, I'll be able to share that with the team. The other thing that may occur this year, I know that I've been serving as the support for the community school district D25 in the high schools. We may shift that this year, so there may be other faces from the team that you see from time to time. So it may not always be me. And that's, again, kind of a work in progress. I think it may be important to have one point for the high schools. So we're going to see how that works out. And that's essentially it. If anyone has any questions, please let me know, and I'll try to find more detailed information for you.
Okay. So, Bill, one of the things that was really interesting for us is that, especially in terms of goals for Joseph DiBenedetto, is really elevating choices and options, especially locally, for students to have opportunities to expand their options to not just schools outside the district, but really building community trust with schools within our district. So an interesting conversation happened at one of my listening and learning tours just this past week, where there was a parent asking for the same thing. And so it was really about, I think, just our parents having more access to knowing what our schools are about, the high schools in District 25, what they're about. This parent seemed to not necessarily know that, and the acceleration courses that are being offered. So I was wondering if we can engage in a discussion about maybe having like a District 25 high school fair alone. I don't think they really are aware of our 6 to 12s and what the schools have to offer as a community. John Baum in Flushing, we have, worked so hard with the principal of Flushing High School, and he's been great. We want to be able to support him, but also Veritas. I don't think parents know the options. Because this parent seemed to really be focused on attending outside the district and wasn't really mentioning schools within. So I was wondering if maybe we can do that with some support of our middle schools, our community-based organizations, such as CAPA, the Chinese American Parent Association, CAPA NY, the Korean American Parent Association. So just really to get our community refamiliarize them with what's out there.
I think that's a really good idea. I know the high schools intentionally have throughout the year, different opportunities for high school fairs, so that prospective students could learn about the school. But that doesn't always get through to every child. And certainly, I see what you're saying, right? Some of the parents may know some of the larger schools, but they may not know some of the smaller schools or uniquely what those schools are offering. So why don't we do this? I can bring this back to the table here, and maybe even talk to some of the principals and see if we can do something, whether it's internally or whether it's a fair. I'm not sure, but I think that we would need to include the principals in that conversation as well as superintendent and the team.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking President's Council, CEC, we could all participate in that, because many conversations that I have with parents, they just don't have the same awareness about our schools as they do about the District 26 schools that they're zoned for, or the specialized high schools. So, maybe it is something that we can do with strategically District 25, to get our communities out there, especially the families that speak languages other than English. I think they kind of go by word of mouth. And so we want to change the narrative. So if that's something you can bring up, we would appreciate that. I think it's a good thing for the district and for our families to understand other choices.
Absolutely. And to your point, the other thing I think that we're trying to do at our level is to create like a new website. So I'm wondering if that website could potentially have links or interested pieces to direct parents to the schools and to some of those interesting unique areas for that particular high school.
Yeah, and we could have it at maybe a middle school, such as 189, because that I know Teresa says her school because she's always great. But for the families that have a large zone of District 25 schools, so many of Teresa's students are zoned for District 26 high schools. So we're thinking if we can bring that information to the downtown Flushing area, that maybe that would we would be able to get that information for parents. But thank you, Teresa. We'll keep that school in mind because we always do, and you're great. Joe, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I think it's a great idea. I mean, we've had middle school fairs in our district that were very highly attended. And I think,
did he freeze? I think Joe, I think you're freezing.
Oh,
yeah.
Can you hear me? Am I there?
Yeah,
we can hear you. Your
So if
screen
it's
just
not
froze.
Townsend Harris, a lot of parents don't know about our high schools. I think it's a wonderful idea. I know we've been pushing CEC Flushing High School, and but we have other great schools here, and I think a high school fair would be a great idea.
Yep. Great. Okay. So, Will, thank you so much for being here, and you always do such an amazing presentation for us. And Superintendent 2, I know will be able to pop in at one of our meetings because I know the DLT would love to meet her. It was she's got a crazy schedule, and unfortunately, I had Bill on there, but I did not have her on there. So now she's been added to our distribution list, and she will get the list of all of our dates. But so just thank her and say we would love to have her at one of our meetings just for a few moments so everybody on the DLT can meet her as well.
Absolutely.
She's been moving and getting herself familiar with her schools. I was able to attend a listening and learning tour that was run by students at Francis Lewis High School. So she's great, and we're looking forward to working with her as well. Okay, so now I am going to turn the meeting over to Dr. D'Antona, where he's going to talk to us about our current plans for the school year. Unfortunately, as you know, that state scores have been released. However, they are embargoed, so we are not permitted to publicly talk about them. But we can talk about some of our iReady data end of the year, which you guys have already known. I know Dr. D'Antona did the presentation for us in June. So Dr. Mike?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not going to necessarily be in this presentation, the data from iReady, but I can certainly talk about that if anyone has any questions about it. I did put in the chat the slides for today, so feel free to open that up if you like as we go through, or you can just follow along as I share it on the screen. I do want to, just before we do that, I want to. You know what? I can just do it like this.
Can you start off with? Can I start off with slide 15? You start off with slide 15.
Sure, Mr. Mango. I'm going to leave a special space for you to do slide 15.
Okay, I'm going to do slide 15 really quickly.
Sure, no problem.
Because I love it.
I know you love slide 15. Hold on, let me make sure that I'm not starting on slide 15 to completely take away from. Is it up? Can you want to start with slide 15?
I'm just going to present it really quickly.
Lewis is sharing.
No, I did it.
Oh, you did it?
Okay. I shared it. Okay, so our theme this year, and Dr. D'Antona will go through it, but I just want everyone to know that is starting off strong. That is an acronym. Yep. For the work that we have normally done. You will recognize it in terms of expectations, but also one of the things that I've been saying, and yesterday when I met with all of our principals and assistant principals, we really talked about how I'm happy to say that we are in the process of emerging from the pandemic. And we know that people, thank goodness, are still getting COVID, but it is not as serious as it was when we started in 2020. One of the things that we have been very clear with is that there is still going to be safety measures taken to prevent the spread. There will still be monitoring of people who are testing positive. There will still be, although there won't be in-school testing, there will be access, and students and families and staff will have access to their own testing. And we do ask that people continue to test. And we also ask that if staff and students are sick and are exhibiting symptoms, that they do not come to school. So those expectations are still in place. We are going to be respectful of how individuals want to prevent themselves from catching this disease, or this illness, which means people who choose to wear masks are going to be allowed to do so. And there will be clear guidelines if your principals have not sent them out. It is something that we're checking on when we're doing our building walkthroughs as to whether or not schools have communicated to families what the safety guidelines will be around COVID-19. That being said, what our data points have showed us in both iReady as well as embargo data that we're not allowed to talk about, and it's something that we would have predicted, is that there are learning gaps that need to be corrected. So we're spending a lot of time working with our building leaders, and our building leaders in turn will be communicating with teachers that we are starting off strong. We are coming back. We're going to be there in support on many levels with our students, academically, socially, and emotionally, but we are continuing to work with the rigor and high expectations and supports for our learners that District 25 is all about. So we have a positive outlook on this year. I know it's going to be amazing, but we have a lot of work to do, and we're ready to do it. So I was very excited when we talked about starting off strong, and then Lewis made our tree with the muscles. So, so I wanted to start by saying that. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Mike.
All right. Oh my goodness. Okay.
I know, so, I'm corny like that.
I love it. I love it. So just a quick intro for this. Obviously Danielle just went through the welcome back and part of her announcements. We are going to talk a little bit about our new principals and new assistant principals that have now joined our district team. As you know, we've said farewell to a number of our folks that have started the wonderful land of retirement. So we wish all of them well, as we had done in previous meetings. But today we'll welcome our new principals and assistant principals to District 25. I'll talk briefly about some of the roles of our new members that we have on our team. Danielle went through quite a few of them already, but I'll give a little bit more specificity around what those roles will look like for our district team. And then we'll talk a bit about our priority area around reading this school year, and kind of get your feedback around that priority and what it can mean for us in District 25 as we continue to try to build into that strong space, as Danielle mentioned already. So welcoming our new principals, we're excited for the new beginning of the leadership journey for the following principals in D25. At PS20, we have Elisa Barisi is joining us as the interim acting principal for PS20. IS25, Nancy DePaulo, would love to welcome her as well as interim acting. Kathy Specchia for PS130. Ingrid LaFalace for PSMS 164, and Danielle Zabrowski for PS 193. So we're super excited for them to be joining us, and looking forward to continuing to work with them as they begin their leadership journey as principals. Also, with the addition of new principals means that we have additions of new assistant principals in our district. And right now we have 7 new assistant principals. We have Dana Lee at PS24, Marlena Nadler from IS25, Amy Marcel, PS154, Heidi Marie Pepe from 193, Karen Martin, 237, Nicole Butler, 379, and Michael Lamnick for PS IS 499. So we're excited that they're all joining us. We're really looking forward to working with them and getting to know them better in their new leadership roles. So our new team members, Danielle did announce and acknowledge a number of our team members. I'm going to also do a little bit more of that now so that you guys have a little bit of a clearer idea as to what their roles will be. I'm not going to read through all of this. I'll just give you a general idea. This is kind of our initial organizational chart. I will share more of this as it gets more clean, but this is in general what this is going to look like. We'll have multiple areas of support, instruction, and data management is going to be an area that I kind of oversee, along with each of our members that are in supporting the instructional space, with Anna, Angelique, Debbie, Melinda, and Rick. The data management side will be Tracy, and Melinda will be having multiple roles in this area as she loves looking at CEPs and very much connected to our work with the DLT. Beverly Mitchell will be supporting student services and operations, and within that role, we'll talk a little bit about Wing Yi, who's our social worker, will be supporting counseling and mental health and wellness. Diana, who was already introduced, and then Nathan Yakubov is our special education administrator. In terms of community engagement, we have Esther, as you already know, and our community coordinator, who was already introduced, in Marissa. And then we have Lewis, as you guys have know quite well at this point, is going to kind of be the hub of communication and outreach from the district. So in terms of overall roles, Anna Arrigo is really going to be supporting our schools in all things foundational reading wise for early childhood, K to 2, and then for things related to the 5 pillars of reading across grades K to 5. So Anna will be really supporting our buildings in especially our early childhood schools with building around phonics and phonemic awareness and the like, to really bolster our foundational reading for our early childhood students. Angelique, we're very excited, is joining our team. We'll be supporting all things MTSS. You guys know that we've focused on this, and Francis, I'm sure you'll be really happy about the idea that we have an individual who's going to be really focused solely on supporting systems and structures for MTSS across our district. I know you played a big role in supporting our parents and getting an understanding in that last year. So we're excited that that's what Angelique will be providing supports in for schools across K through 8, but a primary focus in our elementary schools. Debbie has been part of our district for the last 7+ years. supports our schools as a teacher development coach. So that role will continue, and she'll continue to also support the work of Marianne Cucciara. It's a name that you guys probably is very familiar to you. She has supported us with our L's for quite a long time, and Debbie is an expert in that as well, and she will be supporting our schools in that. So we thank Debbie for that. Melinda is going to be working with primarily our middle schools in terms of big focus within the context of Civics for All and reading through the content area. That will be the primary focus, but Melinda is also going to be supporting our elementary schools with Civics for All, as we saw a great deal of success in our kids engaging in Project Soapbox and really working towards those social action-based projects. So Melinda is going to be doing quite a bit of that work this year, and we're really excited about that. Rick Braun, as Danielle mentioned, is going to be working in the area of L support and instruction. Right now, he is also supporting us with the compliance portion as we add more members to our team in that area. So in addition to the instructional component, Rick is also going to be supporting, as will Debbie, a pilot program that's called Clavis. It's out of NYU to support our English language learners. We're really excited about the prospects of this program as it aligns very much to Marianne Cucciara's work. So we're excited about building that program across the district, and Rick will be instrumental in supporting that as well. In terms of academic policy and data management, Tracy Vaughn is someone who is very familiar with the district and was with us for quite a while, and then last year shifted, and now she's back. So we're excited that Tracy is back joining us and is really all things data management for our district, grading policies, academic policy, making sure that all of the things that we need to get accomplished at the school and district level are done. Programming of kids, making sure that all of our students are in the right space and receiving the right supports at the school level. So super excited for Tracy to be joining us. And as you know, that'll be a space where I wind up spending a lot of my time too, is around that data portion of the work. Student services, Beverly Mitchell, as I mentioned, is going to kind of be overseeing student services operations facilities, as well as the development of a district-wide leadership type of pipeline, as well as supervising around community affairs. So those will be the things that Beverly oversees. Nathan Yakubov, really super excited that we have a supervisor of an administrator of special education. In past years, while we had folks that were supporting us, Nathan is now going to be our direct person that's connected to our district. So we're super excited that he is here. As Danielle has mentioned a bunch of times already, he's been hard at work already supporting our schools with all things special education. So we're very happy for that. Diana was already Danielle already kind of shared the role that Diana will be taking and assuming in terms of supporting student services and health and wellness for our teachers and students across the district. Wing is our social worker, who will be, again, all things connected to student services. She's really looking forward to connecting with our families and community members around mental health supports and ensuring that those resources are widely available in terms of outreach and things that families may or may not be aware of, but making sure that our communities are connected to them as necessary. So we'll also be supporting our crisis teams inside of our buildings to ensure that plans are set up and ready to go in the event that our schools do need them. Community team members, Esther, as you already know, is going to continue to do the great job that she does in supporting our President's Council, our PTAs, supports for our Title I meetings and the like. So her role will continue as it has been. So super excited for Esther, obviously, to be here with us. And Marissa, we've already mentioned in terms of her role as in terms of supporting community engagement with Danielle and doing that outreach in a different way than what we've been able to do in the past. So we're really excited about the prospects of connecting with more members of our community to get some of that feedback and support for what we can do to make our district even better than what it already is. So super excited about that as well. And Lewis, as I mentioned, is all things related to escalations, supports, and outreach to our district team members. So that is in a nutshell where we are as a district team. We're excited about everyone joining us, and know that it's going to make us an even better district community because of it. So that is that. Does anyone have any questions about the district team before I move forward? Okay. So objectives for today, just clarity of team roles, which I think we were just able to do. We're going to unpack the chancellor's pillars and big goals that he has established. We're going to linger over the pillars for just a little bit to kind of gather some of your feedback around areas within those pillars that you feel like we're doing well right now, or the things that we're doing aligned with, and then perhaps some things that you believe that we should also be thinking about in relationship to those pillars. We're going to talk about the big goals as well, gather some of your feedback in that area too. And then we'll spend the rest of the time really talking about our district's priority and what it means currently, and gather some of your feedback in that area as well, while also sharing some of our preliminary district goals that we've established for your feedback, and then certainly approving as a collective group for the 22-23 school year. And Matt, you can certainly correct me whether or not I don't believe there has been a new DCEP template as of yet, with any new things that we should be considering with our goals. But when and if that does happen, we will make adjustments as necessary with that. So in terms of the chancellor's vision for leadership and school improvement this year, the chancellor and his team have outlined pillars, goals, what the expectations around the supportive environment, which is consistent with what they have done in the past in terms of the supportive environment framework. And then the last portion of the plan is around the care principles, around connecting, affirming, responding, and empowering. That is all things social emotional learning. So those last two buckets of supportive environment framework and the care principles are very much connected in that way. So when we're thinking about our citywide expectations and the four pillars, the first of being reimagining the school experience, the second, school scale, sustain, restore things that work, prioritizing wellness and the impact on student success, and partnerships with families. The chancellor afforded us an opportunity to kind of hear from him and his team around what these things kind of meant, and these are the areas in that left column. Really kind of talk to the things that we kind of heard him say, in alignment with it, and using city as a canvas is something that the chancellor has talked about, making sure that we're making use of those cultural institutions that we have accessible to us, our museums and so on. Project-based learning, reimagining what the classroom environment looks like, and talking to kids and families around, how we can make our experiences better. Scaling and sustaining, it's about how we opening the doors to sharing practices with one another. Looking at what we do well and growing from it, leveraging resources within our district, and looking careful at current systems that are working and then expanding upon them as a district community. He talked about the health, physical and mental wellness, healthy eating habits, mindfulness, and then giving families what they need, finding out what those needs are and supporting them with resources. Collaborating with local electeds, collaborating with local police department, collaborating with civics groups, and so on. So those are kind of, in a nutshell, the things that we've kind of heard the chancellor talk about.
Wait, Mike, before you go on, because so what I think is really important and an activity that we engaged in with our principals that they are going to engage in with their teachers is that, together as a DLT, we have gone through many different citywide expectations and chancellor's priorities, right? Because the city does the same thing that we do as a district, where we look at areas of strength and areas of need, and we decide how we're going to move forward to best meet the needs of our schools and our students. So, one of the things that, as the superintendent, that I've established with our schools is when you get your citywide expectations, that does not mean recreate everything. So the activity that we engaged in with our principals is, what did you hear the chancellor say in regards to his 4 pillars? What did he say in terms of his expectations? So we asked them to read the chancellor's statements that he's been making when he connected with communities in the city as a whole about the things that he wants to see in terms of our system moving forward. And then after that, we talked about what we're currently doing aligned to those pillars, and then how we can strengthen our roots around that. And I think it's important for the DLT to know we're not throwing everything out that we've already done to connect with citywide expectations. And that's never been the expectations of our chancellor. It's about really understanding the needs of the city, applying where we are within those needs, and then continuing to build and support them. So this worked out really well because there was a consistent understanding of the expectations of the chancellor, and together we're continuing to build on that work.
Yeah. So Danielle, do you want to go through that exercise now? Do you want just to kind of place a place a reflection for a future meeting?
Yeah, no, we can, I don't necessarily, we don't have to have them engage in that. No.
Yeah. So what I would say though is, just based on things that you've seen and heard over the years as DLT members, because a number of you have been on for quite a while, just in terms of space of reflection for yourselves when we're thinking about the chancellor's 4 pillars, what are some of the things that that we do that are aligned to that, and what in that same space, in supporting district goals and action plans moving forward, what are we doing that's aligned with it? But just as important, what are some other things that we need to consider within this context? So it is an activity that was quite powerful for us to kind of hear and see those areas of strength and those areas of next steps. And we'd love to kind of get your perspectives on it too as we move forward. So similar type of an activity along the chancellor's big goals, excuse me, and just making sure that we're all aware of what they are. So it's that all students will learn to read well, talking about physically and emotionally safe spaces for all of our students, that all students have high quality academic experiences. All students will graduate with a strong plan and pathway to economic security, and so on. So, the plan for each of these areas and when we think about them, is very much aligned with things that we value as a district. They're things that we're constantly working towards and creating that real structured space for our kids to be really successful by the time they're getting ready for high school. So they align very much, and the space that we believe in regards to that is connected to what Danielle started you off with in this space of strong. The Strong Roots, Strong Schools has evolved quite a bit from where it was 6 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm not sure even where we are now, Danielle, in terms of the number of years that it started. But it was really around building those strong foundations for our kids and for our schools and communities so that they were prepared and ready to go for high school. That's always been the crux of that vision for District 25. And to be strong, part of that vision that that's always kind of lived in the values within that vision statement, we broke down into this acronym of STRONG, where we're really focused on the strategic review of data. What is the information that we have say about our schools and across all of our schools as a district? What does it say to us around the school, grades, subgroups? What have we learned? So that the T part of this around targeting the areas of need, something that we emphasize quite a bit at our DLTs, but certainly with our principals, APs, counselors, is really focused on what do we know? What do we know about our schools and as a community that we need to work on to improve? The R around researching possible solutions. You know, not just about saying, okay, here's a need, and then just, you know, arbitrarily saying this is going to be the focus now. It's about researching those next steps. It's something that, you know, what do we know that works based on research, not that based on what we feel or assume will work. It's based on what does research say is going to help support that improvement. The organization of professional learning to support it. This is a really important, crucial one for Danielle and I, especially now as our team has expanded, is making sure that the professional learning really truly supports those areas of need. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time on that. From that, it's around the new implementation of learning. So not just that we've identified, not just that we provided professional learning, but that there is a clear set of implementation that happens afterwards. It's not just about learning from it and that we have a really great folder with new information, but it's how do we take that information and then implement inside of our classrooms. And then about gathering feedback from parents, gathering feedback from kids, teachers, administrators, so that we can then take what we've learned and then support our next cycle of learning and building on for our kids. So this idea of strong, you know, goes beyond our vision. It's really who we are as a community and what we value in terms of improvement. So from that space, where it's brought us is in context of what we're envisioning for the district this school year. Excuse me. So based on our analysis of data, the chancellor's vision around ensuring that all of our students are able to read well, you know, we know that we still have, and those of you who have been on the DLT for quite a while, and know our data over time. While we do really well comparatively speaking across city schools, we still have significant amount of growth to be made so that all of our kids are reading well. So because of that and because of what we know about our schools, the intention right now is to focus on reading as a district. And you know, last year we did begin the process of equity visits, which is basically how we're using information to target areas of need. And we're going to maintain that focus this year around equity visits and through the lens of MTSS, meaning we have kids that are struggling in this area. Who are the kids that are struggling in that area? And then what are we doing to provide them the supports that they need in order to become proficient readers? So yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I just want to add one of the things that we've been very clear and that we think is very important is the reason that we have reading first in this diagram is that our belief is that all of our students have to get better at reading, and our teachers need support in getting our students better at reading. Our equity visits, remember that is what we went through last year, where you drill down in specific students who are furthest away from success, or as we say, performing outside that sphere of success. And we want to talk about targeted ways to get them there. So we want to be clear in that reading is going to be a focus across the districts, across all grades, K-8, around how do we get our students to a space to build their reading skills and the critical thinking and the learning that comes from, in the upper grades, reading to learn, and then in the lower grades, getting those foundations to prepare yourselves for that. So that's going to be a district-wide initiative focused on reading. Equity visits are still going to continue, but our equity focus is going to be students performing outside the sphere of success in reading. Okay, sorry.
So Francis, I see your hand up. Did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, being that the teacher is the first point of contact with the student, right? And I know that there's a lot of students in the classroom. So at what point, like, does the teacher realize, let's say out of 30 students, 15 are struggling, that's 50% of the class. Do they give a report to, maybe as far as MTSS goes, to someone in the school to say, these kids are struggling. Obviously, they don't have the time to do the one-on-one, and they're trying in the small groups, but does that ever get reported to the school so that they can create some type of, program for them within the school that can help these students kind of catch up?
Yeah. So, one of the great points about having diagnostic assessments and screening assessments is that information doesn't go anywhere. It follows our kids across grades. So children that are struggling or struggling readers at this point should not be unknown to our building leaders and to our teachers. So right from the beginning of the school year, it's what do we know about our kids and what supports are we going to plan and organize for them. So the intention is that that we're hitting the ground running. Now, new teachers will certainly need to know learn their kids, differently than on a piece of paper. It doesn't always tell you everything you need to know. So there will be that time period in the beginning of the year where teachers do need to get an understanding of who they are. But having said that, they will have information around what some of those needs are right from the beginning of the school year.
Yeah. So Francis, one of the things that we were actually very happy about yesterday when we were meeting with our principals is over the past 4 years, we've really worked to train our principals and other building leaders and teacher leaders to be able to look at data from multiple perspectives. So we have district-wide data that we present to them, but then there is also school-based data. There's data chats that happen between principals and teachers. There's expectations that teachers understand the needs of their kids in looking at these common-based assessments and that is what's used to help plan. When you talk about MTSS, that's tier 1 strategies that a teacher is doing to say, like, this child is a little bit behind and I can address this through instruction, right? So I know that Danielle is not doing well in a certain area. When I plan for my lesson, I'm going to do something strategic and specific. If I'm going to break up kids into groups, I'm going to go over to Danielle's group and make sure that I start to target that area. But not just our equity teams, but a lot of our teams at MTSS and different levels of supports for students is also an expectation that our schools will recognize. So when we go in, we're looking at the same data as our schools, right? So Dr. D'Antona and I are so strategic that we walk in with data, and I'll walk into a classroom and I'm able to actually assess a book level of a kid and say, this child is reading on this level and you're giving them this book and I need to know why. So like, we have created that culture in our schools that is an expectation. So we can clearly identify teachers who may be struggling with data analysis and provide them support in that area, or teachers who may be struggling with MTSS and how we can provide support in that area, which is another reason why we're really excited in the district to have somebody now like Angelique who specializes in that for schools that may be struggling, not in data, because Mike and I can support schools that are struggling with data. But schools are struggling with implementation of MTSS.
Yeah.
She's going to be working directly with them.
Yeah.
That answer your
Did
question?
that answer, Francis?
No, I just feel like some schools don't really know the difference between like they only support kids that have IEPs. And I just feel like the schools need to understand that there is this MTSS that is there to support children that don't have an official IEP yet, or they just don't have one. So I just feel a lot of times schools spend a lot, and I know because they only have probably one person doing this, working with kids that have IEPs. And then what happens is a lot of the school feels, well, we can't take away the services from IEP. So what happens to these kids who are struggling? So, so I just feel like the schools need to be a little bit more informed that there is this, and these students who are not on standard need this help, whether they have an official IEP. I think schools need that, because I've noticed that schools don't know that, or they think what I just said, that only kids with IEPs get this extra support.
Yeah. And I think, we've had this discussion in terms of communication with parents. I know we made a presentation to the CEC as well. I think it's really important that parents know the different tiers of MTSS. So, part of a conversation, Francis, that I think you're talking about is, Tier 1 MTSS is addressed in the classroom, right? It's the example that I just gave before, where we train teachers to say, like, you understand your data, you know that there's certain needs of these children and you address them. But then there's need for additional support, which is in addition to classroom instruction. And I think we want to start building capacity and understanding of parents on SLTs, parent leaders, so they will be able to start asking those questions, such as, what are some of the tier 2 MTSS programs that we have in our school? How are students selected? And are all of the students that are performing outside the sphere of success being, getting the supports that they need, not just in the classroom? And I think that's what you're talking about too, because tier 2 MTSS is not driven by an IEP. So it is additional supports that schools offer to students. So so one of the things that you and I can continue to talk about, and I know that the CEC also asks, is to make sure that parents truly understand this. You did the MTSS for families last year. I think we need to continue to do that so parents know to ask these questions.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's just it's an interesting space for us to continue to certainly monitor, and certainly for myself to continue to monitor. And what I did learn, last year is schools across the district, have identified, across the district, thousands of children that have received MTSS supports, which I was able to track. And that's outside of children that just are children with special needs. So it is our general education students also that have demonstrated a need in terms of support that we have been able to track, and we have seen success with the MTSS work. It doesn't mean that we don't have still more work to do there, but schools are most definitely identifying children that are outside of those that are just with that have IEPs to support them inside of that tier 2 and tier 3. But yes, more work certainly to be done and followed up on for sure. So when you take a look at just some of the focus areas for the district, just to give you a little bit of a breakdown of what we're currently thinking in terms of supports, K-3 foundational reading skills. That K-2 area is really when they're building those skills to become readers. As Danielle mentioned, that the next portion of it is that the whole learn to read, read to learn. Grade 3 is when that whole process begins to start happening for our young ones, and then building them into being prepared for middle school and then beyond. So for us, we're going to be spending quite a bit of time focused on the 5 pillars of reading, primarily in schools, and building phonics and phonemic awareness for our kids. Systems and structures for MTSS, that tier 1 through 3 is going to be part of our professional learning and work moving forward. District focus for grades 3 to 5 will be, again, within the 5 pillars, focus on MTSS as well. Foundational reading skills as necessary. We do still have some kids in grades 3 to 5 that are still struggling with phonics. So that is where the area of MTSS will be a great deal of support. And then in our middle school, the focus will be on that whole reading to learn component around close reading of complex text. Our kids are exposed to for a variety of different text sets throughout the year. And if they are unable to navigate that text, it becomes very difficult for them to comprehend. So it's around building our teachers' capacity in helping our kids really navigate those pieces of text through close reading. So that will be primarily the focus of our middle schools. Again, systems of MTSS, you're going to see across grade levels because we do know at this time we have children in kindergarten through grade 8 that have varying needs as readers. And certainly there is a difference between how we would support a kindergartner that has needs in some foundational skills, and comparatively speaking to a child is in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade with those same needs. So that will be kind of the breakdown of what we're thinking currently at the district level. We're not going to necessarily go through this article. It is here for you guys to take a look at. It's highlighted in blue. It kind of talks about, it's a research brief from 2007 from a Reading First initiative, and it kind of talks through some of the foundational things in terms of building a reading culture and what's necessary for our schools to have in place for a reading culture to exist. It's part of what we're doing as a district to kind of get into a space of what do we really believe reading should look like. So when you have an opportunity, it's not a very lengthy read. It's about 10 minutes, but just to give you a little bit of perspective on what we're thinking about in terms of values in our district work.
So one
yeah.
of the things that we will be doing for the month of September, and our principals are aware of this, is that both myself, Dr. Mike, and our instructional team will be visiting schools and talking to them about the culture of reading in their schools. Visiting classrooms, looking at the ways that and the expectations that teachers have about reading. It is not going to be anything where we're evaluating them and giving feedback, but we will be using this month to really get an understanding of the culture of reading across our schools. Simultaneously, we're asking principals to engage their community in creating a vision for reading. And beliefs and what good practices and values look like around reading. Parents should be part of this conversation. As you know, in that article, what you will see is that families and communities play a huge role in building a strong reading culture. So our first SLTs across our communities should be addressing this because our SLTs should also be a part of the design and implementation of a vision for reading across their schools.
Yeah, and what you'll see in the article and what you'll see in a organizer in just a second, that the article points out are series of questions to ask around reading culture. And Stan Payne, the author of the article, kind of defined a reading culture as, you know, a group of people teaching reading through these lenses in terms of questions for us to ask. How do we select and use instructional materials? How do we address individual student learning needs? How do we use assessment? Or how and when do we assess student skills and use the assessment information? How do we use available instructional time? And then how do we learn and collaborate with one another around reading? So those are big questions that we've kind of asked our schools to kind of consider and think through in terms of this type of exercise. You know, what is our vision of reading? What is that mission of reading? You know, what do we value? And, you know, what are some common practices that we have in place in our building to support the work of reading in our school, you know, in our schools. So this is an area that we've started working on with our building leaders. We'll continue to progress across the school year, and certainly opens up that space for our team members to start doing some of that data gathering, so it'll support us in providing more effective professional learning as a district community.
Yeah, and this slide is something that we asked the DLT to really spend some time thinking about and looking at and giving us feedback. We did get some very good feedback from our leaders yesterday, just around how we can make some adjustments and add to this vision. And we will ask the same of you guys. You will see this next month as well, because we're going to come back to, you know, are we communicating our expectations so that schools are aware of that our expectation is building a culture of reading across the schools. You know, one of the things that I explained to the principals yesterday is that, you know, in New York City, some of the things that we need to be aware of when we're defining a district vision is that we still need to honor and respect the autonomy of our schools, our SLTs, those communities, and what they find to be good practices, good beliefs, good values that work in their schools. So we don't want to say something so much because there's such diversity across our schools that not one way is best for every school. So although Dr. Mike and I, in our conversations with one another, informing these expectations, we want to be really specific and say, do this. Mm-hmm. We know that if we say that, all of our schools will do that, and it will work really well for some and not for others. So what we communicated to our leaders yesterday is this is about you looking at your data, you engaging in conversations with your community, and really saying, what do we need to do to support our students in becoming readers that will make them lifelong learners, right? Like, what are the things that we need to do? In order to do that, we have to look at what are we doing well, and what does our data show that are real strong gaps that we need to address?
Yeah, and I think that, it's kind of finding a balance between broad and specific. And I think the space that we're leaving schools in is being able to make some choices within some big bucket areas that are important to all of our kids across the district, which is reading. And reading in and of itself is a is a very broad area of where do we go to improve, which leaves it open for schools to really analyze their building level data to find their entry place in terms of improvement. So, we're excited about where this will bring us this school year. As we work towards our district goals, which this is what we have established, and really interested in gathering your perspectives on this too. So this is kind of like just sharing out what we're thinking, and then giving you guys some time to digest, and then share back what your thoughts are as we begin to finalize what will be our goals for the school year. So by 2023, the goal is that all schools are engaging in cycles of professional learning and inquiry to target data-driven, literacy-based needs to disrupt disproportionate outcomes, resulting in a minimum of 5% increase across our schools. That is what the goal is for 2023. And we've established, and this is something of to consider as well, a much more lofty goal for by 2026.
Now, Bill,
Yeah.
is there, I'm just for you, because I know that this is something that we talk about in the beginning of the year, looking at your high school goals to see if there is alignment between this expectation and high school expectation, like for ELA. I mean, you don't have to do it now, but if you can make that connection between now and next month to really say, what does your literacy goal look like, and how can we maybe add some of those metrics into our annual goal for our DCEP, right? So when we're communicating to K-8, we're talking about things that I think, and I know that are expectations for the high school superintendency too, around cycles of professional learning, targeted data-driven literacy-based needs. But if there are specific things that you guys are doing that you would want us to add to this, or if your metrics of 5% is higher than that, and that's something that you would want to kind of lift up to maybe connect with Superintendent too, to see if there's something that you would want to strategically add here.
I'll take it into consideration and meet with superintendent to review. Right now, what I'm seeing is most of our goals are about 3%. So that's what we're looking for as far as improvements in certain areas. And again, it depends on the goal that we're looking at specifically.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But we'll definitely bring it back.
Yeah, and for us, and you'll notice the long-term goal, but just below it, our feeling is that if we really spend, quite a bit of time building our practices in early childhood, that by the time our children that are currently in kindergarten reach that grade 3, our goal is that a minimum 80% of our kids will be on or above grade level. That is lofty, and I believe that for me, establishing things that are aspirational, but yet at the same time realistically can happen, allows us to strive towards something that we really want to see happen for all of our kids. So at any rate, that is a couple of goals to gather some feedback from you guys as a district leadership team, and take some time to certainly digest it, and then offer anything that you think should or should not be present inside of them, and then we'll work towards reorganizing. Any comments on this goal before I move into the next one? Okay. So in terms of our focus on math, we do believe in the work that we have been doing and promoting over the course of the past several years in enabling our kids to engage in rigorous math tasks, promoting that notion of productive struggle and conceptual understanding, with the goal of improving by 5% for all kids, and then emphasis on two of our subgroups, our Black and Hispanic population, to disrupt some of that disproportional relationship that we see inside of our data. What's interesting over the past several years, there's been a little bit of a shift in language for kids. In the past, we would hear kids say things like, I don't really like math. And over the course of time, since we've been really invested in working in this area, we're hearing kids say things like, I really love math. I'm excited about math. And the language is shifting, albeit we still certainly have a lot more room that we have to grow in mathematics. But that in and of itself is really important. When we have kids talking about math in a way where they're looking forward to engaging in some type of problem solving versus, leave me alone with math, is a really important feature of the work that we've been doing and having that growth mindset. And we really want to continue to build on that work and grow in it in the district. So that's kind of where we are in math. Any comments or thoughts on our initial mindset for the mathematics goal?
All right, so I'm going to speak for Joe. Yeah.
Joe DiBenedetto?
Yeah.
I wanted to speak, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
No,
You can
well,
speak for me.
so can I speak for you? Because I think that's an important
Absolutely.
piece that's missing from here. So
yeah.
I actually kind of left this here because, Joe did bring up an important subject for me that became part of something that parents were addressing with him. And I do think it's something that we should consider in our math goal, not necessarily about, tying it directly to Regents pass rates, but I think we need to do more work. And I did, Joe, address that with principals yesterday, just about, and we could talk about this further once, we have more information, but just about not just providing access for students to accelerated work, and that's what we'll call it, instead of just like definitely Regents, but preparing our students to be successful and meet standards in that is another layer that the recommendation of Mr. DiBenedetto said we should consider, and I am in agreement with that, right? Like, we don't just want to say, we're going to give you access to the Regents, and then we have a large percentage of students that are not successful in that access. So what do we do in our middle schools to provide accelerated math provide accelerated math experiences for our students, but at the same time to provide access for acceleration to our students and support them along the way, make sure that that's planned for. So I will say, Joe, the reason that it should be included in there is that one of the things that I said to our middle schools yesterday was all middle schools have to have their 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math teams really talking about this, understanding data, knowing where kids are, and making adjustments to the curriculum and the organization of their schools to support that. Otherwise, there's no point in us giving and offering acceleration to all of our students if we're not going to provide them with opportunities to grow and that will lead to success. So I 100% agree with what you said. And just so you know, you can speak publicly in terms of this, but I didn't want that to not be part of our DLT conversation, because I think it should be part of our goal.
Yeah, I think like some of the reactions I'm getting from parents that their kids have access to the Regents was even the teachers were telling the students, look, you're not going to pass, or it's not going to, it's just I don't know, they just kind of like washed their hands, and I kind of felt like, okay, they gave you this opportunity, but they're not following through. You really need to focus on the success rate, right?
Yep.
Because then it will affect what happens, when they apply when they're in high school, right?
Yep.
Yeah, super
Can I
important.
jump in for a sec?
Yep.
So one of the things that we do when we have those conversations with parents about the children taking the Regents is saying that it's going to be a lot of work. If we think that child is not going to be successful once we find the diagnostic and what we're looking at, and we say this child might not be successful, what we do tell the parent is it's going to be a lot of extra work for that child. We don't say that forget it. We say it's going to be a lot of extra work and there are a lot of things that we have to do. And there's a lot of layers starting in 7th grade that we have to start putting in order for that child to be successful in 8th grade. So I think that's also the other message that has to go out. It's not just about, okay, you can take the Regents, but it's about all the work that goes into and the layering of all the standards that have to come before.
Yep. And Miss Mishara's school over the years has had the highest success rate of students meeting standards in these accelerated classes because of the structures that she has in place that start in 6th grade, because they do that unpacking of data, of knowing students well, because taking the Regents is a choice at 185, right? So we say, we want to encourage you to do this, but here's where you are academically. And either we're going to continue to meet your accelerated needs, or instead of you being able to do a minor or a major in one of the arts, you're going to take your mandated arts, but you're going to have to go into an extra math class. Students choose to do that. So we're going to use schools like 185 as a model for all of our other schools to say it's not just about giving access to the Regents. It's about being able to be successful in it. Yeah, Joe.
I think the students need to also gain some confidence. Like they need to be.
Awesome.
I'm not going to pay. I'm like, you have to build the confidence of the student as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the social emotional learning aspect of the work that we're trying to do. It's about how do you persist when you're taking on a challenge, right? When something is difficult. So, and how do we as adults in the building support that? So absolutely. Francis, I see you have a.
Yeah, I just have a lot of questions when it comes to the Regents, because first thing I want to know, and I've asked this before in other platforms, is how equitable is this test that, we're doing across the board? You have families that get an abundance of tutoring and pay. Some families cannot pay for this tutoring. And so then those people who do put in that extra time might have, a better chance than those that are not. So I just want to know, what are the questions being asked? I printed up the 8th grade Regents and I was just shocked at, how difficult it was just for 8th grade. And so then I go back to the students that had this whole year preparation, and the kids that are already struggling, what support systems are they getting? And at the end, if they don't pass their Regents, they get a waiver, but they still don't know this information. So, they're passing on, not knowing this. It concerns me when a student has, 98% attendance, has gone to some type of tutoring within the school, because some schools offer it, and have gone to the prep test that some schools offer for free, and they still don't pass. So that concerns me, that these students are not getting the support, or they're not being identified. And then, to retake the exam in a month, like if they didn't do it in a year, how can they go back and get a better score in a month? I don't know. Those are the questions that I have.
Yeah, I think this is a very complex question that we have taken on as a district and as a DLT around, when we think of access to higher level coursework. Historically, what we did in the district was we would create 2 classes, right? It was like this class and this class. Mm-hmm. Here's the criteria to get into these 2 classes. As an assistant principal, I remember going through that list, and I could have 150 more kids that would meet the criteria, but we would just take the top that would get into that class. What we learned is that there were other kids who would have been successful at these accelerated courses that did not have access to them. So the first part of that is, how do we provide access for all in that sense? So I think where we are right now as a district in terms of looking at acceleration is you can't just offer acceleration, you have to support acceleration, which schools like 185 have done the entire time, right? So Francis, that's the conversation that's part of the student and the parent to say, like, there are some parents that say, I know that my son is struggling, but I want him or her to have access to this Regents. And so what are some of the things that we can do to support that? Many of our schools, if not all of them, do offer after school morning programs, tier 2 MTSS, to help these kids gain access to be able to take the Regents. It concerns me what Joe is saying, that some teachers are saying it doesn't matter, you're not going to pass it anyway. And I think it's because some schools approach this as, we're just going to offer the access and not support the access, which is why the expectation is that that we're doing this, and our math teachers need to know our students' math skills and math deficiencies well enough and go into the curriculum to make sure that they're covering what our students need. We also know that there are students in high school that get stuck in Algebra 1. So they spend 2 years in Algebra 1. Now, let me just say, as a parent, I know whose child is applying for college right now, and will interrupt me if I'm saying anything incorrectly. But if kids don't take certain sequences, colleges don't even look at them, right? So if we have kids stuck in algebra for 2 years, it's a very small chance that they'll be able to take, a sequence necessary to be considered for certain colleges. And we want to also be able to prevent that. So I think we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
and I think we have a lot of different ways that we can approach this. But what it does need to be is community focused.
Yeah.
It's saying, like, we want to offer this acceleration to our kids and as many children as possible. But here's the work that goes into it, which is what Teresa was saying. Like, no, not everybody can take Algebra 1 Regents in 8th grade. But what we want to do is make sure that they have the math skills to prepare them to take Algebra 1 in high school and be successful, so they're not living in Algebra 1 for the rest of their career,
Yeah, and listen, I have as a parent of a child who's going into 8th grade this year, I wanted my daughter to push herself to try to take the Regents exam, in 8th grade. She did not want to have anything to do with it. Now I could have pushed her to say, you know what, Emily, you're doing it, and she would have been miserable the entire year. So there's a little bit of a balance in that respect too, for us as parents to consider, with our kids. Now, do I think that she would have struggled through it? Probably. Would it have been a great thing for her? I don't know. I don't know if she would have been gone to school every single day, absolutely hating going to the building. And that's not what I wanted for her either. So there is the balance that we also have to play a role in as parents. While we want our kids to constantly be accelerated and want them always to be in those top classes, the coursework that's going to allow them to accelerate, it might not be right for them necessarily at that time too. And that was a decision that I came to as a parent. Whether it's the right, wrong, or indifferent was a choice that we made together as a family, for her in this particular case. And I think sometimes families need to think about that too, just from that perspective. We might want to continue to push them, but if child is also saying, listen, I'm not ready for it, it also matters too. We have to be able to have that decision as a family.
Yep. So Joe, we will reorganize this goal, leave it necessarily as success rates, or students meeting standards. But this by no means is a conversation that ends today. I think we do, seriously need to continue to discuss it from both ends, that we have, what Francis is saying is about access, that if we're going to offer Regents access, we have to offer supports, right? And they have to be clear, and families need to understand them, right? So like what Mike was saying, if he forced his child to take the Regents, he's also going to have to force her to go to school at 7:20, to make sure that she gets the extra help.
Yeah.
So, this conversation is to be continued.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but we will edit.
Danielle, I just wanted to piggyback off of Michael, what Michael said. I 100% agree that I think the expectations for these children sometimes is just too much for them to handle at their maturity at this time. And it kind of discourages them. Like, I don't understand why Regents exam is 3 hours. You know, if the student knows math, you're going to know it in the first hour, hour and a half. You know, it shouldn't be so many questions that it takes 3-hour exam. So
no, and that is, Francis, where we talk about your higher level parent leadership. That is absolutely a CPAC question. I do think the chancellor who connects with the state and the regents should know that that's something that our parents feel, that like we want to be able to offer opportunity, and does it have to be such a lengthy test? You know, because I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, I will bring it up there. Thank you.
Okay, so the last one, and this one, guys, we've talked about, as you know, for quite a while, chronic absenteeism. So the columns here, the one says district targets. So previous ESSA, they're going to be recalibrating this, and we should have new metrics soon in terms of how schools will be ranked and rated, and the targets moving forward. So this is an old version of where we should be by 22-23 in terms of chronic absenteeism rates. The right-hand column is where we ended up at the end of the year. Again, this is Mike's version of it. There's not like an official state, here's what, after they've accumulated all of the numbers and do their thing with it. So this is a Mike version of what the final chronic absenteeism rates were for District 25.
Yeah. So
yeah.
here's the one thing that I want to say. You will all know, as not just a DLT, but know me as a superintendent. As much as I don't want to put my feet on that scale, I'm going to get on it, right? Mm-hmm. Actually, I don't get on a real scale, but I do get on our data scale. So, but what I do want to say is it's really important for us to know this data, to look at it. Do I think it's going to get better? Because I think the pandemic really impacted this. I think kids were sick. I think we had a crazy year this past year. Do I think this chronic absenteeism data is going to get better? Absolutely. But right now, when we're looking at last year and we're looking at gaps in learning, we have almost 6,000 Ls. Almost 1 in 5 of them is chronically absent, right? We're almost 30%, Hispanic and Latino in our community. And look at that chronic absenteeism rate, right? Like, these are things that we know. I've done presentations on chronic absenteeism town halls. I'm going to continue to do them. But to say, if you're not in school, you're not learning. And this is not a school problem. This is a community problem that we all need to start talking about this every month. Francis and Shirley and Joe, like, I want you guys to start talking about this with parents. Like, how do we get kids? How do we value time in school? And, chronic absenteeism means you miss 18 or more days of school. That's a lot of days, right? So we need to really move the needle on this and change the narrative, because we can have the best programs everywhere. But if kids are not sitting in them, or missing certain times, then you're not going to get the success, and the kids are not going to progress in the ways that we need. So this data, just so you know, does represent a lot of different things. It represents kids who were out for extended time because they were sick. It represents pockets of kids who may have missed 1 or 2 days of school a month, which leads to this. But I will tell you, September is, be in school, against chronic absenteeism month. We have to talk about, like, make sure you send your kids to school in September. So parents, principals, everyone, we have to get the word out to say, like, set the stage, set the pace of what school should and can and needs to look like for our kids, because this data is the one that we have to change the most. This is some serious data here. Francis, yes.
I just want to know if we have data on how much of this, like, percentages of parents who feel that their kids are too smart to go to school, or the other side where kids don't feel supported, so why bother going to school? They're not learning anyway. I'm just wondering if we have that data.
So We do not, but we do have data that we can share moving forward around, and I did share it last year at the town hall for last year's data about the difference between students who are not chronically absent and chronically absent in their performance in certain assessments. So but we also do have our case teams, right? Our cultural attendance, social emotional teams. And something that I spoke to with our principals yesterday is case teamwork needs to be centered on this. And those questions, Francis, that you're asking needs to be part of the narrative. It's about talking to families and students about what's happening and why aren't we coming to school? So make sure, in the work that is done at President's Council and even in your SLT that's communicated, right? That parents should know that those things are statements that should be considered and the school should be made aware of them. But at the same time, families should be making commitments to ensure that their students are not chronically absent. Yeah, Joe.
I'm just curious because I know the pandemic changed a lot of things. Even if, somebody in your class had it, you had to stay home. So do we have the numbers from and I think most these numbers are very high, but I think it's mostly caused by the pandemic. Even if students wanted to go to school, sometimes they were forced to stay home because someone in the class.
Yeah, that was last year, not this year.
Oh, okay. So
yes, so this,
but
okay. This was because there was a fear of if a child was sick next to you, the parent was kind of like stay home. I did it too. Look, I know that my daughter had a couple of times where she had some absenteeism issues because there were kids getting sick in her school and she was genuinely afraid. I think that if we were, take that away and we did nothing, our chronic absenteeism rates are going to get better. I think that. But I also think that we still need to do more to change the data here.
So I think we also need to help, to change the culture that, by default, children feel like I don't have to go to school, right? Because, we need to reestablish the importance of getting back to school and we're back to business and, the pandemic is behind us because that definitely will make a difference.
And there are certain things that we can do, such as when I did the chronic absenteeism town hall, many parents on that meeting thought that if you gave a doctor's note that your child's absence was excused, and it is per se, but they were shocked to hear that your child will never be marked present if they're not in the building. And it's still, even if your child has a doctor's note, it still applies to their chronic absenteeism rate. So that I think changed the narrative. And then there's certain things that we can talk about, such as, a lot of parents say my child needed a mental health day. Instead of me saying to my daughter, when my daughter's like, I need a mental health day, I say, you know what? If you go to school this week, on Saturday, I won't bother you. I'll let you rest, right? Like there's different things that as parents we can do to make sure that our kids understand that it's important to go to school, and I think we need, as case teams across our schools, to start communicating that better to families.
So just one thing, Joe, when you talking about, reference to previous pre-pandemic, if in 1819, one of our goals was that's when ESSA data first came out. We had a series of schools that were in that level 1, level 2 ranking, and we decided, as a district, we have to really work on this. What we did see as a result of that, and then pandemic, it was 1920, I think it was, when the pandemic hit, we were just in that space of saying, we're doing such a great job. A significant number of those level 1 schools would have been at level 2 or even at level 3. So we were able to make a lot of ground up during that time. And then certainly the pandemic happened and, attendance rates started to become a little bit more wonky and complex. But the space that I think is super important is, and this is for our families, even of pre-K children, if we get our kids into the habit in pre-K of taking those days, what we've seen is that pattern winds up continuing with that child over time. And, a kid that was absent 18 days in pre-K becomes a kid that's absent 18 days in kindergarten, becomes a kid that's absent 18. And then before you know it, over time, they miss a lot of school. So I do believe that provided that everything comes back to some sense of normalcy in our schools, these rates will decrease in and of themselves just because of that in general. Yeah. But we still have a lot of work to do to make sure that these rates are not at 35%, not at 34%. Mm-hmm. It's a significant number of children that are in that space.
Okay, Francis, and then I think
if we can create some type of reward system. So, for example, as each kid comes to school, they get points, right? They get points for coming in by a certain amount, maybe a 6-month mark. You realize that the kid has enough points to have extra recess, or like Danielle said, a little extra break mentally, or a homework pass, or if enough kids get a lunch with the principal, and if there's too many kids, they could all have lunch together in the auditorium. Like things like that can kind of, maybe an extra field trip, something that can give them an incentive to come to school, because sometimes there's really the only incentive is, oh God, another day of school, and it's like,
so and you know what? Yeah. And you know what, Francis, during our parent chats last year, that came up a lot, where parents would say to us, you guys used to do such great things that, social distancing is okay, like pajama day. Like my child would be excited to come to school if you did things like that, crazy hair, crazy hat day. And some of our schools, after hearing that from parents, did implement that. So you're right. And I think we're going to continue to promote that across the districts. It's important across our district schools. And I'm glad that Teresa's here, because she'll share that with the principals. And she's talented in that herself. Anytime I want something, exciting and crazy, I call on Teresa.
Real quick too, I just want to mention, and this is something that Matt just shared, and thanks Matt for sending me this quick message, is my numbers are inclusive of kindergarten. ESSA considers it from first grade on. So this would change the overall percentages. I include it in here because to me that's where it begins. It begins in pre-K, it begins in K, and if our attendance rates are really poor in those grades, we set our kids up for lack of success moving forward. So that's why I started off with this is Mike's version of what these rates are, and not necessarily what the state will hand down. It's still going to be elevated from where we're supposed to be at minimum. Again, these are minimum numbers of what we should be at in order to be ranked a 2 in terms of a measure of interim progress. We don't want to be in a 2 in anything in District 25 ever. So it's just a mindset thing that we need to continue to support our families, because there's lots of different reasons, that our children are not in school.
Yeah.
And we only mentioned a couple of them. Every child's experience is a little bit different, which is what makes it hard. The hard part becomes is everyone's family experience is different. Every child's experience is different. So Francis, you asked about relationship. There is a relationship between performance, student social emotional learning, and chronic absenteeism. They are linked. There are things there that you can see connections between them. So lot to work on there. The last part around this, our goal is that we see a 50% reduction in where we are currently to where we want to be at the end of the year. That's what our initial thinking is at this time.
And I think, Francis, this goal also mentions what you're talking about, right? Case teams engaging in cycles of inquiry to build positive relationships and supports for students and families. So I think we recognize also that that's an important part of disrupting chronic absenteeism.
Yep. And that is a wrap.
Yeah. Okay, guys, any comments, questions? I know that this was long, but I one of the things is we want the DLT to be aware of the work that we're doing, and that as we're coming together and we're building our DCEP goals, that we're all on the same page, right? So I thank you for your patience, and I know we just have a few more things to do. So consensus, and I want to hear from everyone. And Shirley, make sure I want to see those big hand claps. How are we with continuing our DLT meetings virtually? So a thumbs up if that's where we want to be, or a thumbs down that we want to start meeting live. I don't mean it as a negative, but I'm just saying, like, are we good? So I see Teresa's a thumbs up. I see Bill's a thumbs up. Matt's a thumbs up. Shirley, I don't know where you are. Shirley, are you here? She's on. I see her, but yeah, she might. I know she was having a hard time logging on. I know the internet's very slow today. So, Francis.
Is food being provided? I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me either. I mean, I always love to come in person, but it might be easier to do it remotely.
So can we come to consensus that that we can revisit this maybe November and see if it's time for us to come back together, but we'll start the first 3 meetings, September, October, November, as virtual. So we're in agreement? Okay. Shirley.
I'm sorry. I have a question. Is
Yeah.
it possible? Do we have the equipment to do hybrid?
We do. We do. We could do hybrid. So that could be something that we discuss. And I think we would do that even if we did come back to the table, because they're public meetings. One of the things that we found through this pandemic is that you get more families when you offer that hybrid option. People want to be part of the meetings when they see that they can just log on rather than come to Linden Place. So yes, we can discuss that. But is everyone okay that we will we'll revisit this again in November, and we will consider hybrid as Shirley is saying as well. All right, I just want to briefly go over our dates. Lewis will be working with Janet, and he will be sending the DLT a link that's going to include everything that we used to give to you guys paper-wise. All of our directories of our school information. It'll include our assistant principals, our parent coordinators, all of that information. So everyone on the DLT will have access to those directories. They will be PDF files, and they will be on our website. But once they're up there, I will make sure that Lewis lets you know that they're there. There will also be a link to all of our dates, which I do believe are already up on our DLT webpage, but I just want to go through them very quickly. They are September 19th will be our next one, October 17th, November 14th, December 12th, January 9th, February 13th, March 13th, April 17th, May 15th, and June 12th. So, Teresa, I need to connect with you very briefly after this meeting to go over the email that we received, just so we can make sure that we're on the same page with our meeting that would take place before this. And then, the next piece is I would like to aim for our DLT training to be sooner rather than later. I would like to aim for it to be in November. If the team is in consensus, we can start planning that now. And then, take into consideration what Shirley was saying, we can work to make that a hybrid situation if the DLT is in agreement, where we can have people live with us and we can also record it and offer live streaming. So if everyone is in consensus with that, we can start planning that and looking for a site. Is there anyone that is against that recommendation? And with your permission, we would like Bill to ask to maybe have it at one of our high schools. So our communities can, teachers and parents can see one of the high schools in our district. Maybe Flushing, John Baum.
That's the DLT training for the 14th is what you're saying, right? That particular date?
No, not necessarily the 14th. We could do it on that day, but we'll spend some time at our next meeting really talking about what that would look like. If we're going to do it in a school, we try not to do it during the school day. We normally do it after school, because we don't want to disrupt the schools, and have schools cover teachers. So that would be the other piece, that it would be after school hours. But if we could, we would really like to do it at a high school. It was very successful when we did it at Townsend Harris. A lot of the community came to that event. So, like we said, John Baum or Flushing, if those principals are willing, and the team is okay with it, we would like to plan to do that. But Bill, if you reach out to any of those schools, we can provide all of the equipment to do the streaming, but I just want to make sure that it would be possible at the school if there's any issues with streaming.
Got it. Yeah, I'll check and see. And this would be a DLT meeting, or would it be a different?
It would be our DLT, our yearly DLT training.
Training,
got it. The 2-hour mandatory training.
2-hour training. All right,
You
I'll
mean
check.
training for the SLT, correct?
Yes,
Danielle?
SLT. Yes, SLT training. Yeah,
SLT training. I'll check and let you know.
Okay, thanks. And since everyone is in agreement, we're very excited. I want those of you that do your presentations to kind of just look at them again and make sure that that's the same presentations that you would like to do. If there's any changes you want to make, or if there's anything different that you would like to incorporate in your training piece. Okay. And that's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who's going to go through all these things quickly.
Before I go through them quickly, I just have to say, streaming a meeting with hybrid reminds me of my mornings with Dr. Mike at IS5 when we used to do our morning announcements on the TV show. Just saying, it's just like, it would be just like old days. Anyway, I know we've all been here with a lot of information. I'm going to go through some things very, very quickly. Luckily, it's the standard September meeting, so a lot of this for returning DLT members, it's just a refresher course. So I'm going to share real quick in no particular order. Can you see my screen? Perfect. Up here real quick is just the high-level CEP timeline, which right now we are coming into September, October, November, and there's our dates that are coming quickly. Next thing is, which I know I gave to Lewis, and he said they're in the folder, the DLT suggested activities and also SLT suggested activities. As I say every year, these suggested SLT activities are very helpful for principals so they do not have to recreate the wheel when it comes to their SLT meetings. There is no SLT CEP police that are going to come knocking on their door to say you didn't do this in September. This is just to make their life easy and to give them a head start, and they can adjust it to their needs. But this keeps their CEP in the agenda items for every month and keeps them moving forward in the right process. And now the fun stuff of the A655. As we all know, DLTs and SLTs are governed by A655, and these resources are available through the folder. Thanks, Lewis, for getting them in there. But they will also be put on the iPlan portal by the end of today. And the biggest takeaway from this is that just like schools, the DLT should touch base on their bylaws every year to make sure everything is copacetic and nothing needs to be updated. But this goes in as consensus to make sure that any changes, if there needs to be any changes, they're updated. Was that good enough? Fast enough?
Are you done?
Done.
Matt, you did 10 times better than me and Mike. All right. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yes,
I was just going to
Matt,
call you.
but
I was going to give you the floor. You have the floor anyway, so you could ask the question and then take the floor if you have any announcements.
Okay. So this question could be answered by you, Matt, or Danielle. So we've been asking, because SLTs, like the CECs, are subject to open meeting laws. CECs got guidance on updating their bylaws to the law adjustment amendment to add hybrid meetings. Now I know the SLTs fall under the first deputy chancellor. Yes, first deputy chancellor. We haven't gotten guidance. When is the schools or the principals going to get guidance on updating? I told my school, let's just update the bylaws and to include hybrid meetings. But did you hear, are they sending guidance to the schools in regards to amending their bylaws to the amendment to the open meeting law?
So, excuse me, I'm here. Will's behind me. Shirley, I know you know Will. And he's on different meetings, so if you hear him, my apologies. As you can see, I'll share my screen real quickly again. A655 has not been updated in a fairly long time, and I know that they are in the middle of adjusting.
Okay,
Shirley and I are in the middle of that.
Let me be realistic. It's stalled right now.
Yeah. But
I didn't say
Matt,
it, you did.
think honestly, I think Shirley's asking a good question, because if that is the case, and if you could ask that for us on your end, because CECs did get clear guidance that they have to change their bylaws to support a hybrid model, and that has to be clear. If that's the case, then we'll send that notification to our to all of our SLTs, and if it's the same guidance as the CECs, we can support through that as long as we can do that. I think Shirley's asking a great question.
Yeah, well, with the exception of making a resolution, because SLTs don't do resolutions, right? So,
right.
I agree. As Shirley, as you know, with some of the meetings that you and I have been on, I don't make policy. I will definitely push this. I know that I gave out last year to our members a guidance on how to set up a hybrid meeting, how to do it, how to do this. And I will see if that guidance can get to SLTs directly, just like CC got.
And Matt, you know what? Even if it is an option right now, I would like to present that as an option to SLTs awaiting further guidance. Like, is there anything preventing SLTs from setting up a hybrid model? So
from my knowledge, I don't think there's anything setting that up, especially since I'll bring in my work for signatures on the SLT signature page. A lot of people still reach out, say people still are hybrid, people are do this, and we've given them many options on how they can get the signatures and how they can get a signature without being in person. So I know we've been technically supporting them, but I will see on how to get if there's some connection to get that official.
Yeah, if you could clarify that for us, then my office will send that out to SLTs before their first meeting. So that would be great. It would be the first thing that they can do. So thank you, Shirley, for asking that question.
Okay, so I'm gonna Queens High School President's Council stuff, high school stuff. So we had a meeting August 8th, I believe that's the date, and we met with the new superintendents for Queens North and South, Dr. Watu and Dr. Josephine Van Ness, and it was more of them they gave a little bit of their vision and the listening learning tour that all the superintendents had to come, but it was more about listening to our concerns and expectation going forward into the next school year. Tonight is Queens South Let's Talk. So she's going to go more into her listening tour and learning tour this evening. And then Queens North, Dr. Tu is going to have a back to school town hall, and that's Thursday. September 1st. Queens High School first President Council meeting is going to be this September 12th. Our DLTs and and our meetings are always on the same day in the evening. What else I want to say? We North. So Danielle and Lewis came to Francis Lewis, and they came to one of Dr. Stu's what you call it, community walking talk, and we literally walked around the community to different establishments, you know, and the principal and the students. We had a good number of students there, and talk about how the relationship with the school is with the community, and what certain arrangements we had. Like there's a hotel there, and our students have an internship at that hotel who's studying hospitality and hotel management. And, you know, this establishment is doing XYZ. So she was doing that for all of Queens North schools. I think she did 5. I think the next set is happening after this back to school tour, but she's visiting all the high schools in Queens North. I believe Flushing was one of the first sets that which is in District 25. She visited Flushing, and I believe she visit John Brown as well. I think at this point that's all I could think of. But we are working on challenges again in regards to overcrowding in the high schools, getting admission seats, the admission policies. These are the number one priorities that the parents have concerns, even though that's more for middle school, right? That middle school parent, you know, because our constituents is actually already in high schools, but at the same time, our parents have multiple students, you know, kids, and it will affect the future students, you know, with the admission process and the zoning and, you know, needing more seats. Queens need more seats in all categories, elementary, middle school, and high schools. Just as high schools is really bad, and most of the overcrowding is in Queens North. So we're working, you know, so the annex in Francis Lewis is supposed to open up this September. I toured that building when we did the community walk and talk with Dr. Tu. Cadoza is supposed to open up as well. Their annex is we still need more space, but it's a little reprievement. In those places, the trailers are being removed. So it's like the annex is only netting for Francis Lewis is only 100 seats, you know. So even though there's 500 and something seats, we're only netting 100 seats because we are getting rid of the trailers. So that's the reality. So School Construction Authority has stopped certain projects. They had 5, they cut it down to 3. So we've been fighting with them about why, because they revalued or redid the Blue Book without anybody's, you know, under the radar. And they reevaluated that number of seats are not needed as before. So it's been a battle, and we have been getting the chancellor to cooperate. So it's like if he knows, I said, School Construction Authority has to be at the table. And I said, well, you have to get them at the table because they're not listening to us, because they know that we know the data, we know the numbers, and we can articulate why their numbers are wrong. You know, or you giving misrepresentation, like this certain number of seats are allocated for District 75 is not available to the general population. You can't use that number saying that we have seats for high schools when it's already allotted for a special population. So things like that, that's what's going on with the School Construction Authority, and we've been battling with that, you know, because we want to make sure that, you know, Queens students, if they so choose to stay within the borough. And that's it for my report.
So Joe, did you want to respond? I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, sure, I think we should work together, because maybe if we have all the players at the game, we'll get a better response. But, you know, I've been trying to reach the SCA, you know, middle schools, you know, we lose a lot of kids. They go out of District 25 into District 26 because maybe zoning or whatever it is. So maybe if we get, you know, if we can work together with SCA also. I know they're looking at space, and we need another high school in our district, for sure. So, and I know a lot of families in the middle school, in the high school admissions process, what the changes that occurred this year, they are not happy. So now is the time really to really act, because you got everybody's attention.
I agree. That's how we put the freeze on removing geographic priorities across the city, because all of the CECs and Queens High School Presidents Council, and also with CPAC, you know, kept talking and fighting about it and passing resolutions and position letters. So they, you know, to quiet us down. Okay, so, and that's only for this year. That Tony is laughing at me, but that's what they
Charlie,
did. Yeah.
I also know that SCA does not communicate with us at all. But then I get the community board members contacting me as a CEC representative and saying, you guys don't even need the school. Like, you don't, the SCA is not keeping us in the loop, right? They're having discussions with others and they're not including us. So that's a problem also. Danielle knows. Right?
Yes, it is a problem. And when it comes to the mission process, last month CPAC, we brought it to the chancellor's attention that, you know, we can't be going backwards, not more students not getting any of their 12 picks. So that's supposed to be the September's topic that he will be discussing, which is the 15th of September is the next CPAC meeting. And let's see if, you know, about the admission process, because yeah. Absolutely, of course, definitely. We want to
yeah, and I think October enrollment's coming to CEC, correct?
To CEC, correct. That's Matt, what's his name?
Bergini.
Bergini, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's nice parent collaboration. I love that. Parent leadership collaboration. All right, guys, is there any new business?
Danielle, it's Francis. I just want to say that Jahira Burton was supposed to be on today. I sent her the information and she said she was coming. I don't know what happened, but I have to have a conversation with her to see if she's going to be able to make these meetings then.
Okay, let me know.
I would like her to, but I don't know what happened today, so I just want to let you know that.
Okay, perfect. And then you'll let us know. And you said you'll be here as well, so you just let us know if we're switching it. So as of right now, Janet, hold off on what we said earlier about adding Jahira Burton's name over Francis.
Okay.
All right.
You're sending the dates. The dates were sent to us. I know you mentioned them, but are they being sent in one?
Yeah. So Lewis is going to put the PDFs together and send you a link. Everybody on the DLT, so they'll have access to all of that.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay. All right, everyone. So if there's no new business, I would like consensus to end the meeting. Just say a happy goodbye. I'm looking forward to our first day of school. You will see us all over the district. I welcome you to connect with any of our schools and spend time there if you should choose during the first few days of school. And we will see you on September 19th. Thank you,
everyone. Have a great day,
everyone. Thank you, everyone. Hey, Shirley.
Hey, everyone.
Hey,
Bye,
Teresa.
everyone.
Hey, Teresa, I'm going to call you quick.
Hi, Francis. Esther, goodbye, everybody.